evening, everyone. Hello, welcome. My name is Sherry Sanderson, and I am the director here at the Boulder Junction Public Library. And I am just letting everybody know right away before I forget that we are taping tonight's program. So if you know of anybody that couldn't make it tonight, that was really bummed out, we did figure out, I figured out how to do this. And we are videotaping it right now. It will then be processed and put on our public library YouTube page. So if you Google search Boulder Junction Public Library YouTube, you should be able to find us. On that page, we also have just uploaded this week the broadband expansion public information meetings that took place Tuesday and today are also on that YouTube page if you missed those as well. So we're trying to get more information out to people that can't always make it to meetings or programs. So you are being recorded. Just wanted to make sure everybody knows.
And it is.
Wait a minute. I did not know. I am so embarrassed. So, you are here tonight for our Neighbor to Neighbor program series. This is a series that our Friends of the Library group sponsors. I have been here for 17 years, and they have been doing the program series for 18 years. And in 18 years, we have not run out of awesome programs to offer. We sometimes repeat things, but not like consecutively in years, but we bring back people that were favorites. But as I tell everybody every year, I love new ideas. I love to find out about somebody that does a talk that I've never given before. Somebody tonight gave me a great idea, so drop me a line, send me an email, stop in the library, however you want to do it, if you have a great idea for somebody to come talk. Really the criteria is that somebody that, we used to say Boulder Junction, but now we say in the Northwoods, because we need to expand a little bit, who has a creative and interesting talent or hobby or former profession, food people. I cannot get people to come in and do food demonstrations, so if you know of anybody, what I found out is that chefs are either too busy or too shy. That's why they're in the kitchen. They don't want to be in front of people. So I've had a few chefs come, and of course because it's food, it's always popular, but I'm always looking for anybody that does any kind of specialty cooking or baking that would want to come in and do a talk or a demonstration about that. So any ideas, feel free to give them to me. As I said, the Friends of the Library sponsor this program series. So I need to tell you just a few things about the Friends of the Library. Other than that, they are my favorite people in the world because they provide a huge amount of funding for the library, and our library would be nothing without their help. They have been giving us annual grants, and when I first started 17 years ago, it was around 5,000 to 8,000 annually. This last year, they gave us 20,000. 20,000 to supplement our budget so that money from the town, which is the taxpayers, money from the county, money from donations, memorials, that all adds up. But without that 20,000, we wouldn't have as many new materials. We wouldn't be doing this programming. We wouldn't have great kids programs. So the Friends of the Library are hugely important to our library, not to mention that most of them are also volunteers in the library, which reminds me, tonight, Al and Julie Hillary and Kippy Niesman are the ones that are responsible for that awesome spread in the kitchen. They are volunteering tonight to bring all those yummies. I just made the coffee. That's all I had to do. Thank you so much. How does the Friends of the Library afford to give me $20,000 a year? And actually, I shouldn't say 20,000. It's more than 20,000 because when I have something extra come up, I can ask and they'll fund something extra. So this year, they gave us extra money to buy prizes for the children's reading program, and they gave us extra money for some equipment and this, that, and other things. They will give us extra money in addition to that 20,000. So how do they do it? Number one, membership dues, and I did put membership forms on that cart by the kitchen. If you're not already a member of the Friends of the Library, it's very affordable. It does not mean we are going to call you and say, come work at this fundraiser. It just means that you are supporting the library by being a member. If you want to be called, we will call you. We also have our fundraisers, and that is the biggest one. Used to be the wine tasting, but the book sale is beating them out. Our book sale that's held every Tuesday at the flea market, which there's only one more to go. The book sale this year is set to surpass any other year's records, and we'll probably end up making $9,000. That's just one of our fundraisers. It's a weekly fundraiser, but it's just one of our fundraisers. They have had an incredible year because we have an incredible selection, thanks to all of you, because people donate their books and their videos and their audio. So we have a great selection that we're selling out there this year. We have lots in storage. We have a never-ending supply of books to sell, but the newer releases, the pristine ones, are what really helps us make the money. So we have one more book sale to go, but I will take donations all year long. I ask that you just bring them when we're open so that we can bring them into the library and process them right away. We look at them. If we can keep them, we do. If we can't keep them, we put them in boxes and put them in storage for the book sale. So we do that all year round. The second biggest fundraiser, and Ellen left, right? Ellen left. She's not going to like me saying it's the second biggest fundraiser. It's a very competitive fundraising process here. The second biggest fundraiser is our wine and beer tasting, which is held on Saturday, October 5th. We have wine and beer tasting. We have food, always have food. And we have incredible basket raffles and silent auction items. And it's a great social event. It is held from 5 to 8 p.m. I cannot remember, sorry, off the top of my head, the ticket cost, but it's very reasonable for how much food and tasting we get. So that's our second biggest. We also have a cookie walk that we hold on the day after Thanksgiving. So this year it will be on Friday, November 29th. It's in the Acorn lobby so that it can be part of the Christmas walk in town. That's not a huge fundraiser, but it is a favorite because it's all homemade cookies and candies and treats that you don't have to bake yourself if you want to buy it from the library. And again, our dues. Our dues are actually a huge funding source for us. So I think everybody that does become a member of the Friends of the Library. And we don't have a lot more programming coming up this year. We're starting to wind down. We still do have some stuff going on other than our normal book club and mahjong and that kind of thing. But I just do want to point out this schedule is over on the cart, and there's extra copies if you want to take them with you. Our next Neighbor to Neighbor is on September 26th at 7 p.m. And this is going to be a brand new program that has not been done before. Local historian Jim Bokern is going to be doing unique historic highlights of Boulder Junction. So he has done this for Presque Isle and Manitou Waters, not sure about Winchester. He's a historian, and he has been researching. I booked him back in February or March, and since then he's been doing all of his research for this program. And he's going to try, why he calls it unique historic, he's trying to tell us about things that we don't already know about Boulder Junction. Because a lot of us do know the common, bears at the Dome, that kind of stuff. Phyllis airplane and stuff like that. But he's found some really unique stories that I don't think a lot of people have ever heard about before.
Maybe some risque type of activities.
Probably, yeah.
Jim did it. I can those things out.
Yeah, he had some really, he gave me a couple of teasers about it, and it's going to be really good. And then our last Neighbor to Neighbor of the year is going to be on October 24th. We're moving that program to 2:30 p.m. so people that do not like to drive at night, because that is getting dark that time of year, don't have to drive at night. And that is going to be retired DNR wildlife biologist Bruce Bacon doing his talk on osprey research in Wisconsin. So our next two sessions are great. We don't start again till next May, so that gives you plenty of time to give me ideas before next May. We do have one other program I want to highlight before I turn it over to Leisha, and that is Diane Murray is going to be doing a travelogue on Mongolia, her trip to Mongolia, on Tuesday, September 17th at 7 p.m. So please mark that on your calendar. If you forgot everything I just told you, we have a website and Facebook page that has all this information on it, our calendar of events, our listing of what's happening, plus our Mahjong Book Club and all that other fun stuff. So I'm going to quit talking now, and I'm going to let Leisha talk about this incredible, and thank you, Leisha, for doing such an outstanding job with these educational programs. It's awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to Leisha, and thank you again for coming.
So much to Sherry and the Friends Group for sponsoring this program this evening. Thank you to everyone for coming out to learn about monarchs. And these are probably, I'd like to say my favorite critter, but if you know me, my favorite critter is bats. But they are very close up there with animals that I love to talk about, learn about, teach about, and to do conservation work with. So I've been working with monarchs for about 13 years, I think. I've been having fun with these guys. But again, my name is Leisha Johnson, and I'm a naturalist at the North Lakeland Discovery Center. Is anybody not familiar with that place? Hopefully everybody's heard of us, right? We are a nonprofit environmental education center in Manitowish Waters. And as a nonprofit, we are fully funded by our memberships, donations, and program fees. So again, thanks to Sherry and the Friends group for sponsoring us. The program fee for this evening, for having me here, supports our mission to connect people to the natural world. And we do that through programs like this. Out in the community, I was in Monaco this afternoon talking about beavers, so I never know where I'm going to be and what I'll be talking about. But we do canoe trips and hikes. We've been working closely with the Historical Society in Manitowish Waters this summer. Lots of programs with them. We bring school groups to the Discovery Center during the school year. I go into schools and work with students. And so all the memberships, program fees, and donations allow us to do that. So we're all over the place, teaching as much as we can to connect people to that natural world that we love so much, and we're so lucky to have around us here. If you've never been to our facility, or if it's been a while, you should really come back and check us out. We've got 12 miles of trails that are freshly remarked, and new maps are made that are correct. So it's very exciting. So no one's gotten lost yet this summer. It's fabulous. But we just remarked all those. We got some funding last year for that. We have kids programs, family programs year-round. We're very busy in the summer, but we do programming all throughout the year. We have special outdoor family play days a couple times a year. We do wolf howling, arts and crafts activities, several adult enrichment programs. Our Nibbles and Knowledge lecture series will be starting up in September again, and that is every month. September and October is at the Discovery Center, and then we move over to Camp Jordan because our main lodge is not winterized. But I believe that Kate Krant, who's part of the Manitowish Waters Historical Society, is going to be presenting in September on the history of YCC at State House Lake. And you're familiar with our facility. It was a Youth Conservation Corps boys camp from the 60s to the early 90s, and she works closely with Jim Boker as historians in the area. And then October is myself and my best friend, Callie Bates. John Bates' daughter. We did a trip to Ireland last year, and we're going to talk about our trip and the natural history stuff that we encountered. So those are really fun, and there's cash bar and yummy appetizers involved in there. Right now we are in the middle of our Wisconsin Master Naturalist Volunteer Training course. This is something we do every year. It's through UW Extension. We set up speakers to come in and teach a curriculum to a small group of folks that then are certified naturalist volunteers that we hope help out at the Discovery Center, leading programs, working in our nature center, talking to visitors, things like that. So we do that every year. Besides education, we do a lot of monitoring and citizen science work. Anybody in this room do any citizen science work? Lake level monitoring or lake water quality. We do bat. I don't think I have any bat volunteers in here, do I? Oh yeah, so very good. So we do acoustic bat monitoring, which is a fabulous program. I train folks to use a handheld device. They go out at night and monitor lakes or walk roads to see what our bat populations are like. And over the past 13 years I've been doing this. It's just been devastating to see what has happened since 2014. But that's a whole other hour. Share sometime bats. Love to do that. We'll talk forever on bats. Monarch tagging, we'll actually talk about that tonight. I had a monarch come out today. So we will be tagging that monarch, and if it's not too late, we can let it go, but we can also let it go because it's a wild animal and it'll know what it's doing. Lake level monitoring, we do wolf howling surveys. We have a great birding club that does weekly trips in the summer. We have a birding festival early in the summer as well. All right, but we're here today to learn about the monarch butterfly. And as I'm talking, I might refer to some of the items up here on the table. I've got several books up here as well, so when I'm finished, please feel free to come up. Julie also provided some great handouts here as well, so please check those out. So the monarch butterfly is a pretty easily identifiable butterfly. It's one of the usually easiest ones people can see because it's so big, the colors are so bright, and so it's usually one of the first butterflies that people learn. And it's an interesting one because it does something no other butterflies do, and it's also struggling, as a lot of our bugs and insects are right now. But when we look at this butterfly, what we're going to do tonight is take a look at its life cycle. We're going to look at some of the threats facing monarchs, that interesting migration that they do, and the tagging that we'll be involved in tonight. And then some ones that you need to look out for that look like monarchs but really aren't monarchs. And then how can you help these butterflies? So we'll give you some tips on what can you do, but I'm sure most of you are doing some of these things anyway. So these monarch butterflies go through what we call a complete metamorphosis. And what does that mean? Does anybody know? If you've never been to a program of mine, I ask a lot of questions. If nobody says the answer back, I stand up here awkwardly and stare at you. So what is a complete metamorphosis? What does metamorphosis mean?
It becomes something totally different.
It becomes something totally different. It's constantly changing. Yes. So like a tadpole, like frogs, they go through a complete metamorphosis. There's a 4-stage life cycle that they're going through. And so we'll walk through that first here. Of course, it all has to begin with something very special. And what plant is extremely important for monarchs?
Milkweed.
The milkweed plant. Yes, milkweed is so important. There are about 125 different species of milkweed in North America. The most common one is called common milkweed. Okay, so the one that we see the most often is on roadsides and ditches is this common milkweed. And this is a very popular one for these caterpillars and butterflies. And if you don't know, I'll explain why this plant is so incredibly important. We also have the swamp milkweed. I heard someone mention that. You'll find that usually in wetter areas on the sides of the Monarchs River. There's a lot of swamp milkweed, which is amazing. We have world milkweed. We just planted some of that in our garden. And then that butterfly weed, with the orange or yellow flowers, that's also in the milkweed family. And I found caterpillars on that this year, which was the first time I've seen that. So this milkweed plant is so incredibly important because milkweed plants are the only food source for the caterpillars of the monarch butterfly. They don't eat anything else except milkweed plants. It can be those different species, but it has to be in the milkweed family. So without these milkweed plants, there are no monarchs, because this is what the caterpillars eat. And these are the plants that the butterfly lays their eggs on. Okay? So in order to find these plants, because there's all kinds of things growing, they found that female butterflies will use visual and chemical cues to find milkweed. So they'll know exactly what plants they're going to. They won't be laying eggs accidentally on asters and things like that. They're going right to those milkweed plants because that is what they need. Now they start out pretty small, these little tiny green guys, but if you've seen milkweed plants, and they can get 5, 6 feet tall, they can get huge. And then in the summertime, you get these beautiful purple cluster of flowers, and this is the common milkweed I'm referring to. All of them are a little different, of course. They smell so wonderful like lilacs. Oh, just a beautiful smell. And then in the fall, starting right now, they get these really fun little pods, and I cut a pod off of one of our plants in our garden. But they're kind of these weird little spiky pods, and they'll get bigger, and then they dry out, and they pop open, and all these seeds come out. And each seed is attached to a little piece of fluff, and I've got a bag of fluff here you can reach into. Native Americans would use this as cushioning and beds and things. But if you put your hand in here, you can just feel how soft and silky that is. But each seed is attached to a little tiny piece of this little silk kind of material, and it helps it when that pod opens up, those seeds float away in the air, and that's how they are dispersed through the wind. Okay? So it all starts with that milkweed. And does anyone have milkweed at home growing? Fabulous. Anybody have it but pull it out because they don't like it? Good. You don't want to admit that here. A couple of us might come after you if you do. Like, what did you do? And if you live in an area where you see that it's being mowed down or people are cutting it down, say something. There are several people that I've talked to that it's growing on the side of the road going to their house, and the town comes and mows the road. Well, they've gone and talked to the town, like, can you leave this? This is important habitat. And a lot of times they have success. They say just mark it off, and so you'll see little stakes where people mark it off. And I actually did that for the town of Mercer on Plunkett Road, where the bike trail goes now. That's amazing for milkweed. And so last year I noticed they mowed like right in the middle of July, which is like the prime, like where there's just eggs and caterpillars everywhere. And I explained how important the habitat was, and they were like, oh my gosh, yes, mark it off. And so I did. But this year I I didn't get out there to market fully, and they mowed it. Now I gotta go back to the town. Yes, Julie.
Did the same thing here in Boulder Junction. It was very easy. I gave them a little letter, a little background information, and it's done.
Yeah, I thought they'd like try to fight me on it.
Oh,
They have to get all huffy, you know.
I
was like, oh yeah, we love it. We'll do it. Like, no.
Yeah, Julie, I think found some spots I didn't, because I had told the town about 10 years ago when we started, you
Yeah.
know, they're just marking it off.
Yeah.
And they were just great. They were worried during the road construction that they would have disturbed areas, but they
Sure.
were pretty good, yeah.
They
Yeah,
were
but don't-
they're very receptive. It was
Yeah.
very easy.
Yeah, if you explain the importance of it, I mean, people up here love the Northwest, and they understand, they know Monarchs and how important those are.
If you wanna see, concentration, go down Fish Trap Road, and you'll see that there's a little, swallow in the road, and it's right next to the, water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton of milkweeds right there, and they're just covered with monarchs.
Awesome.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
great.
They're almost to the end of Fish Trap.
Okay, I know like down Papoose Lake Road and like Hiawatha, there's a bunch down there, that people have told
Good
me
place
about
to
too.
our picture.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so if you've got a spot and you see it get mowed, talk to the town, see if you can change it. You know, don't underestimate one person's voice, because it can make a huge difference. And if you want to relocate milkweed, Julie graciously provided some seeds for folks here, so make sure you grab a little packet and there's instructions on how to plant that. You can replant these guys. It's like in our gardens at the Discovery Center, they grow outside of the box of the garden, if you can imagine. How dare they grow in the pathways. Well, our maintenance guy knows to not touch them, because one year one guy came and pulled them all out because he thought it was weeds, and he doesn't work with us anymore. I needed to not talk to him for a long time, like just gotta stay away from me. But when they are about this tall, or even about this tall, you can dig down and transplant those into a bed. So they spread pretty good.
Is that their first year?
Anytime.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been doing it all summer because new ones keep popping up. It's really interesting. They just keep showing up everywhere. And so I've just been digging down, and they have a pretty long, strong taproot. So you just want to kind of dig pretty far down in there and try to get as much of the root as you can. Sometimes they break off, and I still try to plant them. Sometimes they'll just wilt over and die, but sometimes they'll come back up again. Or if those die, another little guy will come up in its place. So just leave it if you try to transplant it. But what I found that was really cool this summer when I was transplanting, there was a couple in a row, and they were all connected underneath. Like there was one root, and then they kept rooting up like that. Yeah, so I just took that hole, I kind of dug around it, and I pulled it all up and buried it in a long strip. And then I had all these little milkweeds come up. It was really cool.
I found out not to be discouraged. I had planted some. I started last year or this past year with, doing the coal, and then getting them in April and whatever. And I took, the thing that the roaster chickens come in, when you get a rotisserie chicken, and I planted in that, and it was like nothing was happening. So I kind of threw it outside, and I was I'll throw that away eventually. Well, 3-4 weeks later, all of a sudden it's all green. I'm like, holy crap. I've been making it for a month.
I know, right? Sometimes it's a real hardy little plant. And a lot of times in the fall, when our pods open up and they're kind of stuck in the pod, those seeds, I'll take them out and I'll just run through the fields to the back of the Discovery Center. Like, what is that crazy girl doing? Just throwing milkweed seeds out. Because naturally they float out and they follow the ground, and so I'm just kind of helping disperse it a little bit. And we've got a big patch now because I'm just always back there tossing it out. But this milkweed is so important, so if you don't have any, it's really a staple that you should have in a pollinator garden, because the hummingbirds love these flowers, other butterflies love these flowers, but it's imperative to the monarch butterfly. So we start with that milkweed plant. The female flies around using her visual and chemical cues. She finds a plant and lays an egg. Now a female monarch can have up to 500 to 800 eggs that she lays in her lifetime. And right now, the summer season, butterflies live for 2 weeks. And we'll talk about how these ones live for longer because of the season we're moving into. But normally they live 2 weeks throughout the summer. And so they mate, lay eggs, and die, basically. That's my goal in life. And so they go around and they find these milkweed plants. And they usually will lay the egg, I can't always say always, because critters will do what they'll do, but on the underside of one of the upper part of the plant, the leaves, because when that egg hatches, that caterpillar, as you'll see, is so tiny its little mouth parts are so small, lower down on the plant, the leaves become real tough and kind of hard. It's too hard for the little mouth parts to chew. So they are usually up higher with the newer, softer growth on top of the milkweed. And normally it's underneath. Sometimes I find them on top. And if you find more than one egg on a plant, it wasn't one, it was a couple butterflies that came and laid an egg there. Because the theory is that one plant should be enough to suffice for that one caterpillar for its 2 weeks that it isn't caterpillar to eat. But the way these things eat, I think they probably need more. I mean, sometimes they are just, anybody else raise monarchs?
Yeah.
A couple folks do. Yeah, they eat a lot. And then all they do is eat and poop and sleep.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. But these eggs, if you look for these, has anyone ever found a monarch egg? It's really exciting to find them. And once someone shows you what they look like, it's just, you're out there and it's all you can see of these eggs. And once you really know what to look for, you're finding them quite a bit. But it's these little tiny, they're usually kind of yellowish, whitish clear, and they have these little ridges on them. So you want to look for that. Now they're very, very tiny, of course, but they do have a bit of a pattern to them. They're kind of yellowish color. And so they are an egg for about 3 to 6 days. So 3 to 6 days, that egg is going to sit underneath that leaf, and the little caterpillar is going to form inside. That was stage 1, the eggs. Stage 2 is our caterpillar, or the larva stage. Okay, now these caterpillars are super awesome. They're super easy to identify. When I first started at Discovery Center 13 years ago, I knew nothing about monarch butterflies, I had no idea what kind of caterpillar they even had or what they ate. But I was in our garden and I found this giant monster of a caterpillar that was black, white, and yellow striped. And it was intriguing because it was so big and it had such a cool pattern. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's a monarch. And it told me how I could raise them. Ooh boy. And I've been doing it ever since. And we've released hundreds and hundreds of butterflies over the years. But when this little guy first comes out, he's almost clear except for his little face is black. Okay? So they're so tiny. And as soon as they come out of that egg, what do you think their first meal is? The eggshell. Yeah, they turn around and eat that baby up. That's their first meal. There's a lot of nutrients in there. So they want to go ahead and eat that up. Okay? And a day or two, they start to get their little stripes. And they're so tiny. It's really fun to find these out in the wild. Sometimes I'll be collecting leaves for my big boys, and I'll bring a leaf in and there's a little tiny guy on it, so I put him in a special nursery. I usually try to keep my caterpillars separate based on their sizes, because sometimes if you got a big caterpillar eating away on a leaf, they can accidentally chew on an egg or chew on a tiny baby guy, like they're just so we have a nursery for the little ones to go in, and then when they're big enough to go, they're big ones, they move up. But over about 2 weeks, 12 to 13 days, like say around 2 weeks, they are in this caterpillar form, and they're eating that milkweed, and they're growing, and they go through what we call 5 instars. And every instar, they're shedding their skin. So they shed their skin 4 times as they get bigger and bigger. And that skin, it's kind of neat. As soon as that, that skin kind of slides off, if you ever see them, they'll be on the leaf, and behind them is this long, like flat skin. They turn around and eat that too. It's very good, very nutritious. So they're eating that skin. You can see here, this is a little guy that had come out 1 or 2 days before. Kind of hard to see, but next to a penny, and that's tiny. That's tiny, and it's amazing. They get to be about 2 inches long in 2 weeks. During that 2 weeks, they grow 25 times longer and 3,000 times heavier. And I usually like to tell kids that it would be like a 5th grader in 2 weeks growing the size of a school bus. Like that's how big and how heavy they get. 25 times longer, 3,000 times heavier. It would be the size of a school bus in 2 weeks. So they're eating and they're just growing and growing, shedding their skin 4 times and going through those 5 instars. When you see a caterpillar, I've got this guy here. He's kind of anatomically correct, a little bit. He's just a little blow-up guy. But some of the things that they'll have, of course, they have a face, and they have 12 tiny little eyes, 6 on either side that are pretty low down on their face. Now these, they're calling them filaments here. I call them tentacles. They have 2 on the front, 2 long ones, and this is where he's a little off. They have two little short ones coming off the back side. A lot of people think those are antennae, but they are not. Their antennae are actually two tiny little things down here by their mouthpiece. Okay, so these are their little antennas down here. These are, they don't really know exactly what these are for. Could be to help, like they kind of bat each other, like if there's like a fly or something in the way, they kind of whack each other, or whack different things out of the way. But they are not antennas. They have a mandible, a jaw here, and then really interesting is on their chin area, they have something called a spinneret. And as they're moving, when they're crawling, the spinneret is leaving this really cool silk pattern. Okay, it's producing this little silk, and what that is doing is it's providing just a little texture for their little feet to grab onto. So if they can go up with like a sheer glass window, and if you can look on here, when we turn the lights on, if you look at it at a certain angle, you'll see these little trails coming up of silk. And that's from that spinneret, creating that silk. Now they have 6 true legs. There's 3 pairs. So these front 6 legs are their true legs. Okay, then they've got all these, what they call pro legs back here. They're like these little suction cup feet that help support the body. And then they have 2 anal pro legs that'll be really important when we transition into our next stage. Okay, but really a kind of a complex little critter. Yeah, they get to be about 2 inches long. And in there, Julie had brought some caterpillars, and there's a couple of big ones in there, which is really cool. So if you're out and you're looking for these caterpillars, some sign to look for, I always look for fresh chew marks on that milkweed. There's like little chew holes, little circles. Sometimes I'll look underneath the leaf, and there's a little caterpillar. It's kind of like hanging out. Yes, and the poop, the waste. Okay, that usually collects down where leaves connect to the stem. Because let's say they're chewing up here and they poop, it rolls down and kind of collects in there. So you can look for that too. And that tells you there might be a caterpillar nearby. If it's green, it's super fresh. It's like right out the caterpillar. When it's dark brown, it's kind of hard. It could have been there for a while. But just a couple things to look for. I always look underneath the leaves. Sometimes I'll just go to a plant and do this and look underneath and see if you can't see anybody chewing. Especially on those top leaves, if there's little tiny chew marks, little baby holes, look real close because you might find a little tiny guy in there. All right, so we are a caterpillar for 2 weeks. We're eating, we're pooping, and we're sleeping. That's all that they're doing, literally. And if you raise them, you know, and you get a few, I mean, you're cleaning out poop a couple times a day, just to keep things clean and healthy in there. So what starts to happen now after 2 weeks? Something inside them tells them to find someplace safe to transition into the 3rd stage. Because what's starting to happen is they're starting to liquefy inside. Now they're not like moths and things where they make a cocoon. You know, they don't create something around themselves, you know, like and then hunker inside, and then out comes this beautiful moth. This actually happens from the inside out. And this isn't something that they do, it just happens to them. So what they're doing is they'll spend a couple days walking around, and they'll go pretty far from plants. And they're finding a spot that is a little bit protected. So they might be underneath bigger milkweed leaves. They might go under the eaves of buildings and things. This year was really cool. Our garden isn't too far from our nature center classroom, but on the back side of our buildings, we had 3 chrysalises hanging. Up very high, we have these eaves over the back door, and there are these 3 little chrysalis hanging up there. We've never had that in the 13 years I've been there, and this year we had 3. It was so cool to see, to be able to see those, and they just went across, they made it across the lawn and the pathway, and up they went. It was very, very cool. So what they do is they'll go and find a spot that would be protected from wind and rain and things like that, and then with that spinneret, they make this little silk button. It's kind of hard to see. Do you see that little white dot? Okay, he's hanging from it. When you come up, you can definitely see it in the enclosure. So they'll spin this little white button of silk, and then they'll walk over the top of it. Well, they're upside down, right? They hold on to it with those anal pro legs, those very back legs. They'll kind of pinch onto that, and then they slowly let all their legs go, and they are in what we call a J shape. And I believe there's actually one And a jay here tonight. There he is. He's just laying there still, just hanging out. So this is called the jay. This is the form of jay. Now what's happening in there is something pretty crazy, pretty cool, and it's really not something scientists can fully explain, which I love. I love that there's still mystery in nature. We don't have to know how every little thing works. I love that there is still mystery out there. But what's happening is they literally liquefy inside, except their respiratory and their circulatory systems. Everything else turns into like a caterpillar smoothie or Slurpee. It's just like this green goo. And you can actually start to see, and in that guy too, they start to turn kind of green. Their little coloring starts to turn green. And then after about 17 to 20 hours, they'll go straight. They'll go straight down, and their little tentacles will kind of go zigzaggy. They aren't straight anymore. And then something real crazy starts to happen. The skin at the head of the critter starts to split off. And underneath is this beginning of a chrysalis. Has anybody gotten to see that? It is one of the most wild things to see. It is just like, what is that thing? I got a video of it, and I apologize because this video I took with my phone like 10 years ago, so it was super bad quality. But you don't need to hear me. Well, maybe you'll hear me talk like, oh my gosh, look at it. So here he's going straight down. Watch these tentacles. As the skin splits, the tentacles actually are moving further and further apart because that skin is splitting off. You can see there's a fresh butterfly over here. And then right in the foreground, you see that chrysalis was on a, yeah, what that was the chrysalis had fallen, and I glued it to a paper clip and hung it back up, and he came out just fine. Because what they're doing, so they're still kind of holding on to this by their anal prolegs. But then they have this cremaster thing. It's like this little stick that sticks out. Ooh, look at it. Coming off. And it happens pretty quick. I mean, this is the first time I've gotten to see it, so I was very excited. Yeah, I wish it was better. I need to do it again and get some better quality.
You can get some on the online. There's some
Yeah, there are some really great videos online. I should just replace it.
I can send you one. I did one last year. I did.
Did you? Yeah, I could just redo it. But yeah, there's plenty of videos. If you just go to YouTube, you can see much better videos than this. But you can see that the skin is splitting off, and what is underneath is this really cool green thing. So the skin, it works its way off, and as the skin is coming up, that little green chrysalis kind of like does this.
Yeah.
It like wiggles like this. It just kind of moves around. And what it's doing is at the top, there's this black spike called the cremaster that comes out and it sticks into that button, that silk button. And that guy, he's trying to twist and turn. He's trying to get the skin off, but he's also trying to get that cremaster stuck way up in that silk button because it's like the little stem that's going to hold that chrysalis nice and strong while it's forming a butterfly inside. So here, so this is the skin that worked its way up, so it's just like a rolled up piece of skin. And that chrysalis, at this point, doesn't look like, it'll take a couple hours before it looks like this. You can still kind of see the stripes. You can kind of see the stripes on it, but it's so delicate, if a leaf even comes by and hits it, then it'll slice it in half. I mean, this thing is like, it's very fragile for quite a while. And it doesn't like, it doesn't want anything touching it because it needs to harden. So it's trying to work that skin off, and it's also trying to stick that cremaster up into that silk button. So it makes that little black thing there is the cremaster.
Lisa, another thing we found when we looked online with this, that cremaster, the one picture, it had like a really blown up picture of it, and it's like a stick, but it's got a whole bunch of little hooks on it.
Yeah.
So when it twists, it's
Like a porcupine quill kind of works its way up. Yep, that
You
makes
can find
sense.
that picture, it's really incredible.
But it is one of the craziest things to see this green. I mean, it doesn't look like an animal. It does look like science fiction. It's just like it's wiggling around doing this, and it's moving to the side. And just waiting for that skin. The skin does eventually fall off there. I won't put you through any more of my voice going through that. So now we're in that stage 3, the chrysalis, okay, the pupa stage. And it does, the word chrysalis is really specific to monarchs. I see people use it for other butterflies, but really it's derived from the Greek term chrysos, that means gold. If you've seen chrysalis, a fresh chrysalis, it's kind of hard to see on this picture, but there's a bunch in there. I really suggest checking it out. All along the top are these little gold dots, this gold line and dots on there. Just look like someone took gold paint. Yeah, and just really put it on there, really fancy. This is when it first came, the skin just came off. There's some juices dripping, that's exciting. You can kind of, you see the little stripes kind of still in there from the caterpillar phase. But now it'll take a few hours and this will harden up to look like this. Okay?
So you said chrysalis, I mean, if you have like a morning cloak butterfly, that's not called a chrysalis kind of thing?
I call it just a pupa because the chrysalis, the word chrysalis comes from to mean gold, and it's named for the gold that's on the monarch chrysalis specifically. I mean, it's not wrong, but I am a purist, and
See, I was like chrysalis, a butterfly.
Yeah.
Isn't it wrong?
yeah, it could, but
But that's
because it's derived from it, yeah. So I'm kind of like, well, really, it's monarch specifically, but it's, I mean, yeah, it can be interchangeable. I'm just kind of a snob when it comes to that. So they do, it's this beautiful jade green color. Now in here, what's going to happen for the next 2 weeks is those old caterpillar cells are going to turn into these new butterfly cells. And somehow, and again, they're not sure exactly how this works, the butterfly cells start to form and they eat the caterpillar cells for energy as they're becoming a butterfly. That I really can't explain it, which again I love, and it'd probably be way over my head and I would not know how to explain it anyway. But interesting with these gold dots, people are like, why does it have those gold dots? What does that do for this chrysalis? And it might be, camouflage, kind of help blend in a little bit, because these things are hard to find. They're really rare to find in the wild. But I read on a study that somebody took a chrysalis and they just scraped off the gold parts of it just to see what would happen. And when the butterfly came out, it was a real pale peach color.
Oh, weird.
So then they thought, well, maybe there's a correlation, like with the sunlight and pigmentation of the butterfly, or the coloring in the butterfly, that somehow that's connected. I don't know. Another one of those mysteries. You can apparently tell if it's going to be a male or female butterfly based on the top of this. There's a patterning of dots. If there's a little line down here, I guess that's a female. I've never seen that. Julie, have you ever looked that close?
It's really hard.
I just wait till they come out. It's a surprise.
You don't magnify it.
It's much easier to tell when they're a butterfly. So for 2 weeks, they're just sitting there in this chrysalis. Right at the end, you know the butterfly is going to emerge because you can start to see this little monarch kind of smashed up in that chrysalis, and it looks like a little, you can see the orange, you can see the patterns, but again, these chrysalis are pretty small, and monarchs are big butterflies, but they are just like tight packages in that little chrysalis. And it's so cool when you start to see this, when you can see that butterfly in there, you better watch because that guy's coming out, or girl, she's coming out pretty soon. All right, this is one of the only chrysalis I've ever found in the wild. It was in this beautiful patch of milkweed in Eagle River. Can anyone spot the chrysalis?
I see it, yeah.
Can you see it? Right there. It's kind of easy because it's dark. This is one of the only ones I ever found, and I just felt lost in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh! But again, that beautiful gold, and then there's gold dots all along the bottom area here. But they, usually, if they are in the milkweed, they're on these bigger, tougher bottom leaves, so look for that. And sometimes in captivity, our monarchs have just made chrysalis on our plants, because, well, like Julie does there, we cut the plants, I wash off all the leaves and put them in little, like, rose holders with water, and sometimes they'll actually form a chrysalis on the bottom parts of the leaf. So I have to cut the leaf off, and then I use a little pin and pin it to the top of our enclosure so it hangs there. All right, so now it's time to move into our fourth stage. So they're sitting there as a chrysalis for 2 weeks. when you can see the butterfly in the chrysalis, you know things are starting to happen, and we're moving into that fourth stage. I do have a video to show you of this as well. So when they're in the chrysalis, they're actually upside down. So their head is down here, and their rear end is up here. When they come out, the chrysalis will split on the bottom, and their like backside will come out, and their abdomen will fall out, and then they'll hang on, just like this guy is here, hanging on to that chrysalis, that empty chrysalis. And there's a couple of those in there, and they actually still have some of the gold coloring on there, which I think is cool. But when they first come out, remember they're in this tiny little package. So their wings are all crumpled, they're super tiny, their little bodies are super fat. All the fluid is in that abdomen. So what the butterfly has to do now, it's another kind of delicate time in their life, because they need to hang upside down for several hours. And when they're hanging upside down, they'll just kind of twist like this. It's so fun. They'll just kind of twist back and forth on that chrysalis, and you can literally watch their wings grow bigger. Because what they're doing is they're pumping fluid from that abdomen into their wings, and their wings are growing and growing, and they have to harden. And this could take several hours to happen. If you do raise monarchs, you know they're ready to go when they've kind of left the little chrysalis area and they're walking around, usually upside down, and their wings are opening and closing. Okay, then you know that they're kind of ready to go. Okay. When they're an adult, of course, they've got antennae here, like other insects. They are a true insect. They have 6 legs. Although when you look at the butterflies, you only really see 4. They have 2 tiny legs up here. Their front 2 legs are almost non-existent. They're super small. Because they look like they only have 4 legs, but they're supposed to have 6. But they're super tiny. And that's due to the type of butterfly that they are. I can't remember the family or what it is, but. Okay, so they got these legs and their feet. What can butterfly do with their feet that's so cool? They taste with their feet. Yeah, so they'll land on a flower and know if it's something that they want to eat based on the taste that they get from their feet. So isn't that? I always tell kids, like, ooh, would you like that after gym class? Wouldn't that be fun? Like, ooh, that tastes real good. I've had monarchs land on me, and I might have like a lotion on or something, and they try to start to probe me with their little proboscis, their little mouthpiece. So it's this little curled up tube that kind of comes out and sticks into flowers to get out nectar, and it rolls back up again kind of in their face. That's called a proboscis right there. So here, I believe, is the video of it coming out, and I caught it right before it fell out. Here's its head. Boom, abdomen just popped out. The antenna, that's the little curly Q was. So now it's just going to kind of hold on so we get a grip. And look how tiny those wings are. And this video doesn't last very long, but just in a short amount of time, you can really see those wings start to grow. You can see they just kind of twist. Just kind of, and they're pumping that fluid into those wings. And again, that could take a couple hours till they're like perfectly hard and ready to go too. But they just hang there, and at that point, if they get knocked off or fall off, their wings might not, grow. If they get damaged in some way. I found monarchs in the wild that have like one good wing and one still crumpled wing, and I don't know if something happened when it was coming out of the crystals. I found a couple times rearing them. I've had a couple that were starting to come out of the crystals, and somehow the crystals wouldn't open and they got stuck, and I had to perform surgery and pull the crystals off, and it worked a couple times. So when they emerge, they're these big, beautiful butterflies. It takes a couple hours for those wings to grow, but this is where it's really easy to tell if it's a male or female. And what do we notice? It doesn't matter with color; it's always a variation, no matter what sex you have. But does anyone notice anything different about these two that might be used to identify the male from the female?
The black on the left.
Yeah, those black dots. Okay, those black dots, those are glands, scent glands, that put off a scent to attract females. Okay, so that tells us that's a male. Females do not have that black dot, And also their lines tend to be thicker on their wings. So tonight, when we take out this one that I brought, I kind of peeked and saw what it was.
That Jay, he's twitch, and it's hanging downstairs.
Oh, isn't he interesting? Oh, sometimes if like, because this other caterpillar's near him, he can sense it and he's like,
Oh.
get away from me. Yeah, they get pretty wild in there. But we'll see if you can identify looking for these black dots, these scent glands. So really easy to tell if it's a male or a female there. So right now, the generation of butterflies that are coming out, I mentioned that normally they live for 2 weeks. They mate, they lay eggs, and they die. That is what they do. These guys that are coming out now, they're born without reproductive organs. So they don't mate, they don't lay eggs, they don't die. They do what? They migrate. They fly south. So the monarchs we have here in northern Wisconsin and this kind of part of the country, they're going to go 2,500 miles to the Transvolcanic Range in Mexico, this one spot. Okay, all these butterflies. On the west coast, they go down the Baja here, like in southwestern California. They do a different migration pattern because of where they are. But on the eastern side of the country, they all kind of come down, and some do go to Florida. But most of them come down into here. It's about 2,500 miles. They'll leave now, they'll usually get there about November, and they stay down there all winter. And there are these Oyamel fir trees, are the trees that they hang in this Transvolcanic Range, in this one spot. It's really incredible. And if you ever go there, people can go there, you would see just trees covered in these butterflies, just butterflies everywhere. And they don't go into a true hibernation. I mean, they'll hang, but they will fly around a little bit, drink water, things like that. But they kind of go into more of a torpor, kind of, they slow down, metabolism slows down. They overwinter there, from November until about March. It gets a little warmer. Here in California, this is a eucalyptus tree, just coated in monarchs. And some people are lucky enough to have trees in their yard where a bunch of monarchs will come, like in our area or like in southern Wisconsin. They'll come out and there'll just be a ton of monarchs on the tree as they're migrating through, and then they're gone. And it's really fascinating if you're lucky enough to have that. So they're down there until March. Then they kind of, warms up, their reproductive organs now form, okay? So now these butterflies, they start to move north. So the ones that left us, that are leaving us right now, next spring, they're going to start to fly north. They're going to get to about Louisiana, Texas, this area. They're going to mate, lay eggs, and die, okay? Then those young, the egg will go into a caterpillar, will go to a chrysalis, will come out as an adult. They'll start to migrate north, and what they're doing is they're following the milkweed. Okay, they're following their food source. So it was interesting this year. Spring came a little bit on the late side, and plants were coming a little bit later, and I was really nervous because we normally see them around Memorial Day weekend, and the milkweed were like this big. I was like, oh my gosh. But they move up with the growth of that plant because that is what they need to lay their eggs on. So the young from these guys will come up to about here in the country. They'll mate, lay eggs, and die along the way. And then they'll have those ones will kind of move north. They do mate, lay eggs, and die. And then that kind of third generation is who we'll see next spring. So that'd be like the great grandkids of these ones are what shows up back here in the spring. Now, they're not sure exactly, if someone knows this, please inform me how they know to keep moving north. I mean, they're moving north with the food source. Is that it? But how do they know that? How are they migrating south? I did read a study where it has a lot to do with the antenna and the sun. So they took butterflies, had the antenna, and they migrated south, no problem. So then they took the antenna and they painted them black. They put black paint on the tips. And the butterflies all went in one direction, but it was the wrong direction. And then they took them where they actually took the antenna completely off the butterflies. And they were going every which direction. They were just all over the place. So it has something to do with the antennas, the sunshine, where it is in the atmosphere, and that's how they find their way. But why? I don't know. Just a miracle, I guess. So in the fall, this is where we can really learn a lot about this, and a lot of what they know and what I've talked about, their movements, is because of tagging. So we're going to do that tonight. I've got a tag to put on this monarch. It's this tiny little sticker. It's from Monarch Watch. It's a nonprofit organization out of Kentucky, Kansas University. Thank you. There's a phone number and a specific code with 3 letters and 3 numbers specific to that tag. When we tag a butterfly, we put it on what we call the discal cell of the wing, and we've got a data sheet. We write down the date, the location, was the butterfly wild or did we rear it inside, and is it a male or female, and they write down the code. And then when we're done for the season, I send that down to Monarch Watch, and then you can go later on. When these butterflies are migrating south, when they get to Mexico, they'll hire people to go and check these butterflies and see if they've got tags, and then report that in. Now last year, I was so excited because 2 of our monarchs we tagged last fall were down in Mexico in February. It was the cool. I've been doing it for 13 years and I haven't ever had one, and then yet last year we had 2 make it down, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. Because I look at the numbers and it's always so close, a raffle ticket, you're just missing that last number. But this year, yes! We had 2 of those guys go down and make it all the way, which was really, really cool. So that's a great way to learn. And as the hope is that when people maybe see these butterflies, if they can get a hold of that tag number and then enter it in, you can watch that migration south too, which is really cool. A couple websites you might be interested in if you're interested in doing more of this or watching this migration. Monarchwatch.org has a ton of information on monarchs and the migration. Journey North is a really great website to track migration in the spring and in the fall. You can go on there, and as you see your first monarch of the season, or even in the fall, you can put in your zip code and some information, and a little dot shows up. So you can actually watch it moving north as people are plugging in their areas. I love to do that for hummingbirds too. You can watch the hummingbirds get closer and closer and closer and closer. And you're like, ooh, gotta get off those feeders. So this is kind of what the map looks like. This is from spring of last year. So if you go to it, you can actually watch these dots appear every day moving north. So it's really fun because you can see it getting closer to us, and you get real excited about it. But look at, there we are, right up there. It's pretty cool. Okay. So looking at monarch numbers, populations, we've heard a lot recently. The numbers of monarchs have gone down drastically over in the past decade. This kind of goes through. This starts in 1994, 95. It's weird to say 1990 something. Doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it really was. You can see this is in 96, 97. These numbers here are hectares. And 1 hectare is 2.5 acres, okay? So the highest was in 96, 97, overwintering. It was 18.19 hectares, okay? So times that by 2.5, that's how many acres. And that's what that number means is how much space is being covered by monarchs in wintertime, down in their hibernation area. So you kind of measure the number of monarchs based on how much land they're taking up. If there's only a little bit of land that are filled with monarchs, there's not many monarchs there. But the bigger the space that they occupy, the more monarchs we have. And we did see this incredible low right here. Look at this. Remember in 2013, 2014? That was the lowest it ever was. And that was due to storms the spring before. When the monarchs were migrating north, in March, there were some nasty ice storms that happened in southern United States, and it took out millions of migrating monarchs. So that summer, we hardly had any. I remember going out, and I found 4 the entire summer. And I spent hours looking for them. 4 the entire summer. But since then, we've seen that raised up quite a bit, went down, and then this winter, just an incredible number of monarchs. And that's why folks are seeing more this summer, because there are just more of them. They had a really good year. As they're migrating, if big storms come through, that'll take millions of them out. It was a really good migration last spring. And so we've had a lot of butterflies this summer, which is great. It's always interesting to see how it changes, but what a jump from last year. I mean, you'd think a small hop, but that's really exciting. We haven't seen a number like that almost since 2006, 2007, which is ironically the year white nose syndrome hit the United States. There's probably not a correlation there, but yeah, this is a great tool. This Monarch watch produces this, but just really interesting to see the numbers. And a lot of it has to do with weather patterns, habitat destruction, deforestation. We'll look at when they're down in Mexico, there's some threats. So we can do a lot up here, you know, saving the milkweed, planting milkweed. However, a lot of these butterflies spend their whole life, or part of their life in another country, where we can't control what happens. And so we have to trust that conservation groups and those areas are protecting those areas too, and doing their part, because that's there's a lot of butterflies in one spot, and it only takes one terrible activity to kill thousands and millions of them. So a couple threats to monarchs is climate change. It alters the timing of the migrations, the rainfall patterns. We're starting to see more of those, kind of more devastating natural occurrences, tornadoes and winds and crazy ice storms in the south and in spring, things we haven't really seen before, and so that really affects these animals quite a bit. Habitat loss, of course, just the milkweed going, getting cut down, fields being cleared, and homes being built on them. Just habitat is, a lot of critters are suffering there. In Mexico too, in those forested areas where they overwinter. Insecticides, of course, people use them for one thing, but anything that comes in contact with that area, any insect, amphibian, a lot of stuff suffers from that. Okay, milkweed is killed by Roundup, so people use this kind of chemicals to kill weeds and things too. Roadside maintenance activities, we talked about how that's actually something we can do something about, which is amazing. So please don't underestimate your taking your time and going and just mentioning it to the town, because as we've heard, several people, they're very receptive to it. Ozone pollution. Milkweed is a really interesting plant, and it's almost, you can use it as, what is that called when a species an indicator species on air quality, because it's so sensitive to ozone. You'll see different patternings and things happening on milkweed, different coloring coming up, and you think it's just because the plant is old and dying, but actually a lot of it has to do with the amount of ozone.
So is it the yellow or is it the black stuff on there?
Both.
Okay.
It's kind of the yellow, but then it gets that black dots on there. Yeah, so it's kind of a combination. But if you look that up, there's actually the different ways the leaves look, tells you different things. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's an indicator species of air quality. Deforestation in those overwintering areas, you can see all these kind of lighter spots is where all the forests have been illegally cut. These areas are protected, but again, people sneak in there. They don't have a lot of money, so they're going to cutting down these trees. It has lots to do with just the society that the area is, and there's all these underlying issues. But unfortunately, these forested areas are what gets hit, because those trees are worth a lot of money. Okay, and tourism, I found this really interesting. So you can go and do tours to these overwintering sites, and people hike up, and you get to see all the butterflies. But they were seeing that so many people were going there that the butterflies were getting stepped on. All the dust from the horses and donkeys carrying people in was coating the butterflies, and they were dying. So I think they have started cutting back on that, just because you want to show people how amazing, but you also don't want to get in there and start destroying the thing you appreciate and respect. So there are a couple of lookalikes that you might be fooled by if you see them. The Viceroy, has anybody seen this butterfly? They're a little further south. I found one, I saw them in Stevens Point. Has anybody seen them here? I think they're just a little bit more in central Wisconsin. I do have, I knew it was in Stevens Point because I found it in the grill of my car. Oopsies. So I only have 3 wings. Sorry, guy. But you can see the coloring is very similar, but they're actually quite a bit smaller. Because you can come up and check this out. They're quite a bit smaller than a monarch. But they also have that black band that monarchs do not have. But that looks a lot like a monarch.
Yeah.
If you saw that guy go by, you could mistake it. But they're not really up here. The painted lady, another common one. When you really look at it, it doesn't really look too much like a monarch, but it's got the black and the white and the orange. Sometimes people think black, white, orange, it's a monarch. this one's really cool. This is the queen butterfly. These are further south too. We don't have these here. When their wings are closed, I mean, that looks like a monarch. It looks a little odd, like these random white dots. But when it opens its wings, you can see it's totally different. Okay. Now these butterflies, they've actually evolved to look like a monarch. Does anybody know why? Because of the toxicity of these guys. So when, this milkweed plant, when you break off the leaf, there's that white sticky stuff. It's actually really toxic to animals, certain animals. And so when the caterpillar is eating that leaf, it's eating those toxins, it actually makes that caterpillar toxic to other animals. And that's why their coloring is nice and bright. So it tells predators, don't eat me because you're going to get sick, right? And so that toxicity actually stays with that critter in the transition to a butterfly. And so butterflies, these monarchs, it usually takes one mistake to grab one and be like, actually the birds kind of throw up and they hack it up, and they don't do it again. But other animals kind of have changed over evolution to look like a monarch. Now, if a predator can't tell, like, I think that's a queen butterfly, I took my guide, no, we can eat that one. So these ones are actually really tasty, but because they look like something that's super toxic to predators, predators usually don't touch them. So perfect, they kind of just blend right in. All right, so to kind of close up here, what can you do to help these butterflies? And again, there's many, many different things here. Check to see if there's any local organizations dedicated to preserving an area near you. You can work with garden clubs. If you've got these big milkweed areas, tell someone, do something about it. Protect those areas. You can look at larger organizations like Monarch Watch. You can get involved in the tagging to help science, things like that. There's all these articles that have recently come out saying you shouldn't be collecting monarchs, you shouldn't be raising them because they don't migrate correctly, blah, blah, blah. Most of the articles I've read with that, yeah, they made it. All it takes is 2 for me. They made it, we're good. But a lot of those articles were referring to those commercially raised monarchs. People can order like eggs and caterpillars, and they'll ship them across the country, and then you can raise them yourself. They're probably going to have some issue because they were raised commercially, which is kind of an odd way to be. But then they're shipping them across the country to completely different latitudes and longitudes, and those animals probably won't act as normally as they would if they were in the wild. If you do raise them, Monarch Watch came out with a great article saying, they still encourage people to raise them because there's a lot of things that can happen to them. If they get cut down, if plants get cut down, they can get parasites. The tachinid fly will lay an egg on a caterpillar, and sometimes when it goes into a chrysalis, that egg will kind of hatch and come out of the chrysalis and drop out, and it's like this little larvae pill. It's so gross. And you take it outside and you smash it. Because it's these nasty little flies. And I do have a slide, or one of these petri dishes that has the little casing and the fly that came out and the chrysalis that it destroyed. So they can get,
Is there anything you could do to get those from, because I've seen those,
right,
on the monarch, near the milkweed, and you're like,
yeah, so a lot of times they can also lay their eggs on the milkweed leaf, and the caterpillar will eat it, and then it'll come out of the caterpillar when it's in the J, and then the little guy's hanging, and he's got these like little white, it's so sad. So when I have my caterpillars, any food I put in there, I take a wet paper towel and I wipe down every single leaf. I try to get all the aphids off of there. You don't want any spiders to be on there, things like that. So I'm like rubbing my leaves off, just to make sure, just to help. Not to say it can't happen. I mean, I've had 3 this year get a parasite and die. But we've also released 75 healthy butterflies back out. So you can weigh it. A lot of places say it's okay. Monarch Watch says it's fine. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't order them from across the country. I find that odd. I mean, we're lucky we have them here. I suppose if you don't, it's a great teaching tool for kids. But yeah, what's that? I know. Maybe you live in a city or something. I don't know. Plant a garden. But you can get involved in these organizations, and you can buy milkweed seeds. You can send in, Julie, you would send in seeds to a place, right?
Monarch Watch.
Did you?
Yeah, if you go to Monarch Watch up in the upper right-hand corner, they've got a place where they they would like people to collect seeds and mail them to them, and then they distribute them to the highway departments and farms and
Cool.
whatever.
So you share a seed.
Yeah.
Share a
send
seed.
seeds to them, yeah.
That's awesome. So there's lots of ways you can help. Just if you if you don't want to raise them, because it's a big commitment. There's a lot of poop to clean and things like that. They have to have fresh food all the time. But there's lots of other things you can do. Go to schools, and I've written several grants for schools where we go and plant a butterfly garden with kids, and the kids love it. They're so proud of it, and it really brings something to that school, and it's very, very, very educational. And then never underestimate the importance of your own backyard. Planting a small garden, planting a few milkweed. I had a person who had literally one milkweed plant in their yard, and they had caterpillars on it. So it just takes one plant. I did bring a couple of monarch favorites, or a lot of butterflies and hummingbirds love these, but maybe you already have these growing at your house. This wild bergamot, this kind of purple bee balmish type of a guy. This is more of like a commercial cultivar of the bee balm. Black-eyed Susans, monarchs love the nectar from black-eyed Susans. Monarchs love nectar from blazing star. This is a prairie blazing star. Phlox is another great one for butterflies. And marigolds, yeah, the most common one. Marigolds, they're all over right now. They're just goldenrods. Thank you. Yeah. Goldenrods, these are great for monarchs. They love the nectar. So even just this couple plants, and Julie did pick up and brought some Prairie Nursery catalogs. Where are these from?
Their place is in Weston, is it?
Westfield.
Yeah. They have a great website, and all the stuff that's in the catalog is on their website. But they
Nice.
gave me, I think there's 13 there.
Oh, look, I just opened up to page 50. Monarch habitat section. Boom, flowers, ordered,
Basically,
done.
it's a nursery that they sell native plants.
Native plants. That's a great resource. Look at all those. Ooh, that's expensive for, but that's an acre. Okay, anyway, get sidetracked. Cool, grab one of those. Plant a little garden in your house. It's so fun to see. And this year we actually planted a milkweed specific garden at the Discovery Center, as I mentioned. And we've got 4 different species of milkweed in there, and all the species had caterpillars. And that place it was filled with caterpillars all summer, and it was so exciting. We had so many, we ended up leaving just a bunch in the garden because there was just so many. So it's this little tiny L shape. I've got a patch of common milkweed. I've got 3 giant swamp milkweeds. I've got some butterfly weed and some world milkweed. Every single one had caterpillars on it. And it's a tiny little space.
I bought butterfly milkweed at the Stone Nursery or something, it's on 51.
Stony Creek? Mm-hmm.
And there were like 3 monarchs, caterpillars on each plant I bought.
Really? You bought it with the monarch on it?
Yeah.
Oh, bonus. Excellent, yeah. So you can have a variety. You don't just have to have all common milkweed, because it's a beautiful plant, but there's some other really gorgeous ones too. Like the swamp milkweed gets real tall and has a beautiful light purple cluster. They look like little palm trees. It's kind of fun. We got our plants all at Rhinelander. Help me out, it's on G. Hanson's, yeah, they are great with native plants. All right, so that is what I have for monarchs. Hopefully you've learned a couple interesting facts about them, understanding their life cycle, that incredible migration that they make. No other butterfly makes a migration like that, so they are incredibly important for pollination. It's just a unique critter that we should really, as far as what we can do conservation-wise, it's pretty easy to plant a little garden to save a section of milkweed, and it really does a lot. So I hope you enjoyed the program on monarchs. Please come up. Again, Julie has some great handouts. I've got some fun things to look at, especially if you look at the wing of a butterfly. A lot of people say, their wings are so delicate, don't touch them. Oh, and we'll take out this one now too. So that's coming up next. But if you look at their wing, they're actually made up of thousands of little overlapping scales. So their wings are pretty tough. I mean, you don't want to go and just like, oh, what does this do? But you can handle them if you're careful, and I'll show you how to handle butterflies properly. But if you look under the microscope, you can see these thousands of overlapping scales that actually make up the wing, and it kind of helps protect that wing. Because if you're traveling 2,500 miles, you can't have real flimsy, delicate wings, right? I mean, they get down there and they got like half a wing hanging off, like, oh my gosh. You can't be wimpy doing that kind of a trip if you're going through traffic and going 2,500 miles. So it's very, very cool and unique critter. If you haven't also seen the chrysalis that are in here, we've got the guy in the J. He's actually starting to turn green, so he'll be a chrysalis probably by tomorrow morning. But we do have a butterfly here that I can take out and we'll tag and release. So, Sherry, I'll let you turn the lights on. And again, there's some great books. There's some great picture books. There's also some really great books where people actually followed monarchs on their migration, kind of wrote about that experience following them south. So these are some great, you know, kind of adult books, if you will. No pictures. So please check those out. If you have any other questions about monarchs, please contact me at the Discovery Center. Our website, discoverycenter.net. We've got programming still coming up this fall. Tomorrow, I actually have a tagging program. You've already seen my presentation, so you don't have to come to it. But we'll be tagging. I've got a few more butterflies that came up yesterday that we're going to tag. So. It is 8:15, but I didn't get started until like 7:15.
You can keep going. Keep going.
Usually I talk way too much. It's like, oh my gosh, stop. So we'll take out this butterfly. Yes, there is a let me there's one I think it's actually let me just take a quick. I don't know.